listener production.
Hey, Bension here. Influencers behaving badly isn't something that's entirely new, but why does it feel like a lot of influencers and reality stars have been winding up charged with some very serious crimes lately? Most recently, Kat Torres has joined that list. She went from a life of poverty in Brazil to partying with Leonardo Di Caprio. But in the past 24 hours, the former model and wellness influencer has reportedly been sentenced to 8 years in prison for human trafficking and slavery. So what is going on here? The Briefing's Helen Smith is here to take us through the stories of some of the most prominent stars who've fallen foul of the law. Hi, Helen. We'll dive deep into the story of Kat Torres shortly, but who else has had one of these major downfalls?
Hey, Bension. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. We love it when a celebrity or someone who is a big name, very successful, has these downfalls. And a few of the names that have recently kind of popped up in the zeitgeist, pop culture, or had, a Netflix series made about them would be Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos, Dance Mums, Abby Lee Miller. We've also got Felicity Kendall as well. And then we've got Andrew Tate that was recently arrested and charged for human trafficking. We've also had, deep dives on Martha Stewart popping back up again in our feeds. So we are really fascinated by this whole idea of a downfall of a celebrity. And I want to jump into another example in a little bit more detail. We had Jen Shaw, who was a housewives on the Salt Lake City franchise. And we kind of saw her downfall all play out in live time on The Real Housewives. She was a high-profile reality TV star and was charged with criminal conspiracy in 2022, which she's serving prison time for right now. And she was criminally charged with wire fraud and sentenced to 6+ years in prison. Now, that sentencing has been reduced. But yeah, I think people really love to hate on influencers and reality stars in particular because I still think we have an issue with that's their job, is being an influencer.
Yeah. So who is Kat Torres? Tell us about her.
Yeah, so Kat Torres was an Instagram influencer and former Brazilian model. She started modeling when she was around 12 years old, and she has this incredible story of kind of going from rags to riches to partying with high-profile celebrities. And she really used her modeling and her beauty to create this amount of wealth and a following for her that she did use to escape a troubled childhood and family life. And she turned it into this wellness influencer, lifestyle guru, almost like coach persona, where she had over 2 million Instagram followers. And back in 2017, this was a lot of Instagram followers for someone who wasn't a Kardashian, who, wasn't a massive celebrity name. For a model who turned coach, wellness guru, this was a big deal.
So what have the allegations been against her?
Yeah, so the BBC has done a massive investigation on Kat, and people have alleged that her actions were similar to that of a cult leader, including witchcraft, sexual exploitation, human trafficking, missing women being at the center of some of the allegations, and also slavery. Now, Torres reportedly would recruit women to come and work for her in exchange for a place to stay at her massive mansion that she had. And she was promising to help them achieve their dreams. But a lot of these women realized within weeks of uprooting their entire lives that it wasn't exactly what they'd been promised. And one source that did speak to the BBC said that Torres actually pressured her into working at a local strip club, and that if she wouldn't comply, then she'd have a massive debt to pay Torres, which, these women didn't have the money to do, and they were coming to work or be with her for a better life.
So she has been charged with some very serious crimes and in the past 24 hours sentenced for those crimes. Tell us about that.
Back in 2022, Kat Torres, was arrested in November after being caught in Maine in the US and deported back to Brazil. She has now been sentenced in the past 24 hours to 8 years in prison for human trafficking and slavery of women. This investigation began back in 2022 when there were reports of missing young women who were linked to Kat. The FBI launched this search in the US based on the information that these women were reportedly living with the wellness influencer, and it kind of all went down from there. Since then, more than 20 women have actually come forward to share their experiences of living with Torres. That was reported by the BBC, who reviewed court documents from these individuals. And these experiences were also documented in a BBC documentary that was filmed earlier this year. And they use actors to portray some of the individuals involved. And it really takes you deep into behind the scenes of what was actually going on behind the Instagram feed that was glitz and glamour and wellness and inspirational quotes and everything you could imagine that you'd think an influencer you'd want to be like. And it really showed a different side of it.
She took these girls and she convinced them to do whatever she wanted them to do, just like a cult.
I was in a strange city, in a strange hotel, having sex with a stranger for money. How did I get here?
I think I was probably one of the first victims of human trafficking. She was using me as a slave.
Okay, so where is Kat now? What's going to happen to her?
Yeah, well, she, as I said, was deported back to Brazil when she was arrested in November in 2022. And now the process has started. She's been sentenced to her 8 years in prison, so she'll start having to serve that time. She has, though, said that she's planning to appeal her conviction. So we'll have to follow along there because it doesn't look like this is the end of this story. And it doesn't look like survivors as well, alleged survivors, are going to stop speaking out. There's been more reports of experiences. So I think this is far from over, but it does show a darker side to Instagram and social media. And back when this was in 2017, 2015, wellness Instagrams and influencers really weren't as regulated as much as we're seeing now. We are seeing a lot of changes happening in that space on social media.
So given what we've seen with all of these stories of people becoming really massive stars on social media and then having these downfalls, what do you think that says about social media in general?
Yeah, social media is such a powerful beast, and governments have been trying to regulate, social media platforms for ages now, for privacy, for data, information, you name it. But I really think this overnight success of influencers is never going to stop. We're always going to be looking for a new person, a new face, a new voice, something interesting. That's just what we do. And I also think we love a story of going from nothing to something amazing. We've got the Nepo babies. It's not that impressive when a Nepo baby who has all the connections already succeeds and becomes amazing and fabulous. We almost expect that. But I think with Instagram and social media, it's so much easier for a nobody to become a somebody and to create this audience and these fans and these clients and these followers, whatever you may call them. And I think the people that become these influencers and big names naturally have this presence or this ego or this confidence that we are drawn to, and that's why they're good influencers. But I do think that, more needs to be done, especially for children on social media who might be seeing these people as role models. And when you don't regulate something like a wellness influencer with the information that they're giving out, which could be medically incorrect or wrong, I think that's when you can get into murky waters, when somebody is influencing people that they might not necessarily be an expert on. But social media is not going anywhere, and we're definitely going to have more stories like this in the future.
Absolutely. Well, Helen Smith, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks, Bension.
And that's it for the briefing for today. We'll be back in your feed from 6 tomorrow morning. I'm Bension Siebert. Catch you later.